So hi everyone, welcome to Defend 3. Today our topic is social influences on behavior change, and our guest speaker is Regina Schreiber. And she's a second year PhD student in clinical psychology at the U of A, and her main interests are in mental health stigma and how people may invalidate themselves due to the way they experience emotion. She's also interested in emotion regulation and when people may engage in self-harm behavior in an attempt to regulate their emotions. She's particularly interested in working with college students, especially students athletes to help overcome health struggles and reduce barriers to help seeking. And as a former collegiate athlete, she can appreciate the role of social influences on making change to exercise and eating behavior. So thank you, Regina, and it's all yours.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Just to make sure y'all can see the full screen of the PowerPoint, not this weird one with like all the notes and outline or whatever, right?
Yeah, the full screen.
Okay, great. Like we just went over, I'm going to be presenting on social influences on behavior change. So we can just go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, thinking about, what is social influence and why do we really care about it? So broadly speaking, social influence is a process where someone's attitudes, opinions, beliefs, behavior, any of that is altered or controlled by some form of communication that we have with other people. So one specific type of social influence might be conformity, and this is really when a specific goal that we have that's driving our behavior is to be accepted or have a sense of belonging within a group. So that's kind of the motivation behind behavior in those circumstances. And an example of this might be with respect to changes to dietary behavior or exercise, that you might choose to make these changes because you want to be like other people or you want to feel accepted by other people, things like that. Another form of social influence that can potentially impact our behavior is compliance, which happens when we change our behavior, but internally we still disagree with what we're doing. So we haven't totally bought into the reasoning behind our behavior change. And this might look something like choosing or starting to eat foods that are considered healthy because that's what other people say that you should do. But maybe you haven't really internalized the value in eating those foods. Maybe you're just doing it because other people want you to, not because you actually believe that it's helpful for yourself. So kind of like this guy here pointing at his salad, he's not super excited about it. Maybe he's just doing that because he thinks he should, but he doesn't really think that it's super valuable for him. Let's see. So why do we care about these different forms of social influence? Like I said, conformity is kind of a broad umbrella. So any behavior change or change in belief that we're doing because of some type of group pressure, which could be positive or negative. Within the realm of conformity, we have compliance. Again, that idea of changing a behavior but internally still not agreeing with the behavior that you're doing. That's in that green circle. And then obedience, not super relevant here, so I won't spend too much time focusing on that. But if you look at the blue circle, we see the role of acceptance. And this occurs when we make a behavior change because we're influenced by other people around us, but we also agree with it. Our attitudes are in line with our behavior change. So that's the main distinction between compliance and acceptance. Compliance, we've changed our behavior, but don't really believe in the value of it for ourselves. Whereas acceptance, our attitudes and our behaviors have both changed. So if we're thinking about this in the context that we're interested in, we may think about changing an exercise habit because peers or family members say that we should, but not really believing in the health benefits quite yet for ourselves. Over time, the more that we engage in a behavior, even if we haven't quite bought into the value of it, this can actually help shift our attitudes. So if you start engaging in a new exercise routine, going on a walk every day, maybe first you start out doing it because a family member is telling you that you should. But maybe over time, the more that you do it, the more it becomes a habit. You start to believe, oh, this is something that I actually see as being valuable in my life. So you see that shift between doing it for the sake of someone else to doing it for the sake of yourself too. So why is it important that we see that shift between compliance and acceptance? How does that influence our behavior change? Well, there's three main components that can impact our intention to actually do a behavior. So one of those is our own attitudes towards the behavior. So what we think about making changes to exercising habits, what we think about incorporating a new vegetable into our diet every day. So that's one way that can impact our intention to actually do that in our real lives. Another influence is the perceived social pressure that we feel to engage in that behavior. So what we think other people feel that we should do when it comes to our diet and exercise. And then the third component that can influence our intention to change a behavior is how much control we feel like we have over actually being able to do the behavior. So if you look down here, we can see that when our attitudes about a behavior are more positive and the attitudes that other people have about the behavior, so the social norms, when those are also more positive, this makes us feel like we have more control over whether or not we're actually able to engage in the behavior that we're hoping to. So then from there, we can see that the more perceived control that we have, so the more that we feel like we're able to make some shifts in our daily life, incorporate that extra vegetable every day, go on that walk every day, the more control we feel like we have over that, the greater our intention is to actually start incorporating that behavior into our daily lives. So all of these things kind of play off of each other, our own attitudes, the attitudes we think that other people around us have, and then how much control we ultimately feel like we have in making changes in our lives that we want to make. So another thing that, another social influence that can be very important to our behavior change is goal setting. So even in the context of setting goals for ourselves, creating those independent goals, other people can help us reach those goals, even if they're not a direct part of them. They can help us by holding us accountable, helping us make a plan for how to achieve the goals that we have for ourselves, or just being a source of encouragement. So that in itself is a social influence that we can experience every day. We might also choose to make goals with other people. So maybe you have a friend or maybe you have a family member who is wanting to make similar changes in their life. Maybe they're wanting to alter their exercise or alter their diet. And maybe together you come up with those goals and hold each other accountable. In this situation, it can be a lot more motivating when you have a joint goal, so something that you're sharing with another person. It's just important to keep in mind that that you're both pursuing that goal together and have the same intentions behind it, or else one person may end up undermining that goal pursuit, and it may not be as beneficial as it would be if you had just kind of gone at it alone. So you want to make sure you're on the same page there. with whoever you're setting your goals with. And there's even research that shows that when you are focused on goals for yourself that don't involve other people at all, you can still be socially influenced. So people have been shown to perform better on tasks just after having had a positive social interaction with someone. So even having a pleasant conversation with someone else before going off to go for your walk or try and start making these changes in your life, that in itself can improve your performance on those behaviors, which seems crazy to me at least, but it's been shown to happen. So, and then, so we've talked about how social influences can be related to how accepting we are, or our willingness to change, how it helps with our pursuit of goals. And another social influence that we may see is what's called co-action effects. So what this is basically the idea that people ultimately perform better on tasks when other people are around, and when they're also engaging in the same task. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it together. It could be a complete stranger. Maybe you're at the gym or something like that, and you're trying to do your own workout. Just being around other people who are also working on their fitness, that in itself can increase your performance. So this kind of goes along with goal setting, but it's a little different in that these people could be complete strangers, and not necessarily something that you're doing together, just in the presence of each other. So like in that example that I have up here, when exercising, people may have a better workout if others are there, maybe doing it with them, or just they're doing it at the same time. Research also shows that we tend to eat more food when there are others around us who also happen to be eating at the same time. So this could be a positive or negative thing, right? Even when people are not, in research studies, when they haven't indicated being hungry, or maybe they've just eaten and they feel satisfied, just seeing someone eat in their presence, those people then tended to go back and get more food, even if they were already full. So we might take this idea and kind of use it to our advantage and think about how maybe putting ourselves around other people who are eating healthier, more nourishing foods, that might motivate or increase our tendency to do the same thing, rather than putting yourself around people who maybe are eating those foods that you're trying to move away from. So just being mindful of whose presence you're in, and whether or not their behavior is going to be motivating or maybe working against some of the changes you're trying to make. So kind of the main takeaways on how social influences can impact behavior change. So first, this idea that we may initially change our behavior to fit in, but over time, the more we engage in that behavior, the more it becomes a habit for us. We can also change our beliefs about that behavior to really value and accept it for our own benefit. And then this other idea that our attitudes about a behavior, what we perceive other people to believe about a behavior, those can both increase how much control we think we have over ultimately engaging in that behavior, which then can increase our intention to really go out and do it. Third, this idea that setting goals with other people, or even just setting goals for ourselves, but allowing others to be there for us, to support us and encourage us, hold us accountable, those can all increase motivation when you're trying to make behavior changes in your life. And then engaging in a behavior simply in the presence of other people who are doing the same thing can improve your performance on that task. So being mindful of who you're around and whether or not the things that they're doing are in line with, or maybe at odds with, some of the changes you're trying to make. So that's all I have. I do want to definitely open up for questions, or if anyone needed me to repeat anything, if I went through it too fast, I'd be more than happy to do that too. Jamie, do you want me to stop sharing my screen for the discussion part or keep this pulled up?
It's up to you. You can stop sharing if you want. And
Okay.
then you'll be able to see everyone.
All
So yeah,
right.
if you have any questions for Regina, either ask them or put them in the chat. I mean, I know that I'm always influenced by who I'm, or what I eat is influenced by who I'm around. So I can totally
Definitely.
relate to some of these.
Definitely, yeah. I know I experienced the same thing too, so.
Has anyone noticed during all of their challenges, like maybe how successful you are that week depends on who the people you're interacting with are, or how successful you are maybe in physical activity? So I have a question. So during social distancing, where we may have limited social interactions, have you seen any, or like read any literature on how that's like influencing people's choices?
Sorry, I think you cut out for a minute.
Oh,
I didn't hear some of what
it
you
does.
said.
My internet's unstable, it says.
Okay.
Has there been any literature published yet on how the lack of social interactions is influencing like eating or physical activity behavior change?
That's a great question. I didn't see any when I was kind of preparing for this, but that doesn't mean that it's not out there. There's definitely been a social isolation related to COVID has impacted different areas of psychological health or just motivation in general. But there's none that I can speak to right now, at least having read anything on that. I would not be surprised to learn that there's definitely stuff out there about it, for sure.
I think it was like the NIH just came out with a study I read in one of their press releases that, and they surveyed people in 27 states, and on average, I think during the first 6 months, people gained 10 pounds during the pandemic, and then then after that, it was like the average American was gaining 0.6 pounds every 10 days.
Wow. Yeah, I've definitely heard about the challenges of weight gain throughout the pandemic, for sure. But it would be interesting to read more about some studies that have been done on that.
So we did have one question about the challenge for this week, compliance to acceptance for a new vegetable. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be every day, just try one new vegetable this week.
Yeah, and the main kind of speaking to the difference between compliance and acceptance is a great question. So the main distinction between these is that we have compliance over here, which is when we change our behavior because of external forces. That might be someone else telling us, you should eat more vegetables, or just in society, kind of knowing that that's something that's valued. If you're, going to be healthy, you need to eat more vegetables. So we may decide to start eating more vegetables because of that, but we may change our behavior in that way without having totally bought into why we're doing it. So maybe you start eating more vegetables, but still your attitudes and your beliefs about it are, I don't need to do this. This isn't helpful for me. This isn't going to positively impact my life. So that's compliance, when your behavior and your beliefs are kind of at odds with each other. Acceptance would look more like, realizing, okay, other people are maybe suggesting that I try and incorporate more vegetables. And I also see the value in doing this. I think it would be really helpful for my health. So I'm going to make that change in my life. And in that situation, you're motivated by external pressures that can be positive or negative. In this case, more positive, but you're also motivated to make that change because you believe for yourself that it's going to be something that you want to do. I hope that helps clarify it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great. Because I think oftentimes we're told what we should eat or do for physical activity, but not the why.
Exactly. Yeah. So kind of finding your own why and thinking about your own values. And looks like another question in the chat. Any advice on dealing with a partner that doesn't like healthy foods like green veggies? Yeah, great question. So partners can be really helpful in these goals, and they can also be a little tricky if they're not wanting to pursue some of the same goals that we have. I would say that, I know sometimes it may be kind of a pain to make 2 separate meals or something like that. I'm not saying that that's something that you would have to do, but maybe just creating at least an alternative when it comes to the veggie, if that's something that you really want to incorporate. Totally giving your partner the option to do it with you, but also just kind of respecting that maybe that's not something that they would want, and still valuing that it's a goal that you have for yourself. And so still being willing to incorporate that for yourself, and just accepting that, your partner can do that with you or not. That is a tricky one though, but at least for the vegetable, maybe the plus side is you don't have to make as many if you're just serving for yourself. That's a good question.
We have a few more minutes left. Any other questions? And it doesn't have to be about like this week with trying a vegetable, but we've had, 7 challenges now. Has anyone noticed or thought about like the social influence that they've had on your ability to meet or achieve our weekly challenges, or with your SMART goal that you've set for yourself? This could also be discussed on Monday with Danielle in our behavior session, but we have an expert here. I mean, I think I've always heard, or I've even find like you said, going to the gym makes me work harder and so that's one thing the pandemic has been challenging for me, because my treadmill with my virtual coach is not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same feeling, right? I've definitely noticed that too, just being around other people who are doing the same thing. It sounds crazy that it can be that simple, but it really can be sometimes. So definitely the virtual environment, still maybe better than nothing, still maybe better than doing it alone, but it doesn't give you the same feel as being in person. Yeah, joining some virtual challenges, exactly. Still having that accountability in that sense that you have other people to go at it with. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to some more in-person stuff soon.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Well, this was a really great session, Regina. Thank you for donating your time to us today for Defend 3. And don't forget to call into our personalized coaching sessions. We have sometimes guided topics, but also suggest topics. And I know Jamie had addressed some comments from our Facebook group during her session this week. And check out all our videos on YouTube. So thanks everyone, and have a lovely Friday and weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.